Hello, everybody, and welcome to ABM Answered, the 7-minute demand generation / ABM video series, or at least that's what we aim for. I'm here with George, who is totally capable of introducing himself in a second. But again, to give a short concept of this video series, George, in this case, will have 7 minutes to respond to questions all about account-based marketing or demand generation. These questions have come from or have been adapted based on the data that we've collected from mixed reality rooms, where over 1,000 marketers have gone through and stated what their biggest struggles are with demand generation and account-based marketing at the moment. So these questions, statements, and kind of struggles, I guess, are randomly selected. They're all plotted out on a stem diagram, and after every question, we'll flip a coin, which will determine whether we go heads or tails down that stem diagram. So, yes, George, I will hand it over to you to give an intro.
Hello, my name's George, and I'm an account-based marketing manager for a demand acceleration partner firm called Inbox Insight, based in the UK.
Wonderful. Let me just flip this coin. So we are on tails. This takes us to, so question one. The problem that we got in is simply understanding the difference between demand generation and account-based marketing. So, it's quite a common question, isn't it? What's your take on this, George?
Demand generation is more contact central. We look at challenges and solutions, and problems, and routes to success. And accounts is all about a particular unified business. The thing I love about account-based marketing the most is it's treating, in its purest form, it is treating each account as a market of its own. And so there's a lot of research that goes into the initial stages that allow you to choose the correct account, so account selection, and then also creating the right tone, the right messages, and tailoring the rest of the marketing mix to that specific account. In the more modern sense, where we leverage technology to hit more accounts simultaneously, there's a blend of demand generation and a contact focus. And I think that's where businesses like Inbox Insight sit, because they blend demand generation with account-based formula and theory to be far more targeted. And so I think it's a nice look into the future.
Awesome. That's
how's that sort of answer? I don't know if that's yeah.
No,
is that right?
That's pretty solid, to be honest. Like, yeah, we've had a lot of wishy-washy answers when that question's come up, but that was pretty good. Right, okay. So we're going heads. Question two. So the problem that we received and got in is relevant touch points over a long sales cycle. So I guess the nature of ABM, you're dealing with a higher value ticket product. It's going to take longer. How have you handled this, or like how many touch points do you aim for? Have you had any creative ones? It's a pretty open-ended problem, so
Okay, so good question, expansive question. It's all about tracking engagements, first of all, and it's all about creating the right engagements and meaningful experiences. We've got many different types of platforms, many different types of mediums, and everything in the digital and then the physical world as well. So how do you track those? Well, you track them ideally in one centralized location, CRM, marketing automation, ABX platforms, which we're seeing more crossover as the years go by. And how do you manage them? There's no good answer to that, but at an account-centric level and with very good contact management. And a journey, buyer user journey or customer journey tracking is tricky to do it well, especially if you're hitting multiple accounts simultaneously. But effectively, everything that can be tracked and measured is a signal of furthering intent. So you want to create meaningful experiences that highlight, what's the word I'm looking for? That create the right after effect. So if you want them to walk away remembering something or thinking differently, that's where the right messaging comes in.
Does every cadence change, or do you follow a structure over for each account and just change the content?
It depends, because not all accounts are equal. And if you've got a tier 1 account, you're using far more personalized approaches. Whereas if you've got a collection of tier 3 accounts, you've got that cohort, that segment, you're going to be far more you're going to be less specific and less myopic with your review of it, and you're going to be checking it less often. So you could be checking your segments of high intent accounts or high fit accounts if they're tier threes, or if you're going programmatically at a fortnightly or even like monthly schedule to track engagement rates. But if it was a tier one account, a gold star account, a white gloved account where you're investing X many more thousands of pounds per each account, you're going to be checking that on almost a daily to weekly level, and that continues throughout the life of the account, checking the health, checking it's moving in the right direction, because they're worth that investment. We talk about account entitlements, and if you have 4 tier one accounts, you've got to think, well, what kind of investment of an ABM's time, or the demand gen team's time, as well as the salesperson's time and the research team's time, is going to be afforded? Because if we are hitting at a programmatic level 1,000 accounts, 500 accounts, it would be physically impossible. So you've got to sort out the account entitlements of how often these things are going to be reviewed as well. Rule of thumb, if you're using the more modern ABX style, fortnightly checkups work very well. Fortnightly checkups with the SDR, the AE team, and the demand gen team sitting in on a meeting, routine meeting. That works quite well.
Okay, that's the golden nugget that I could probably use as well. Fortnightly.
You've heard that one before, then, yeah? Have you?
No. I haven't heard it before. So we're kind of trying to figure it out ourselves. Obviously, we take an ABM approach with our platform as well, because that's what the product does.
Every other Wednesday, meet with the AE and their SDR, and you
Yeah.
look at the accounts they're prospecting into, their accounts in their pipeline, and work out which ones are the high velocity ones. If you are doing more of like a scaled approach, and then you look at the ones like going to be closing, or if you've got 360 sales, like which one needs the CSM approach on top of that. But every fortnight, you've got the opportunity to talk about, if it's the SDR, okay, well, what kind of messaging, what kind of brand, what kind of assets do you need to help break in? And if it's the AE, it's like, okay, well, let's have these account reviews. Where's it going wrong? Do you need your accounts refreshed? That's another thing to consider, because should you trust the AE to fill out the CRM with the right accounts, with the right contacts? Is that part of the SDR's responsibility to refresh these quarterly or monthly? It's another thing to consider, but give it a go. The fortnightly reviews where everyone joins in, same playing team, it works quite well.
I absolutely love that.
Our biggest challenge will be how do you generate the horizontal focus around ABM? Because it's not marketing, it's sales, it's services, it's product. So how do you make a horizontal focus when you're an ABM manager and you're not the CMO? Because
I see.
It's difficult to get time in people's calendars.
Well, that's super ironic, because, and I've already flipped the coin, but the next question is engage the entire buying committee and not just one or two contacts. Is that kind of what you mean by the horizontal? Like, are there any plays that you've done in the past that work in that sense, even though it's a challenge?
Speaking from a demand gen point of view, understanding the DMU, that cluster, the people within it and the challenges they have and how you service them is very important, because without that, you don't have anything to stand upon. How you engage them depends. If we're looking at white gloved accounts or client accounts with massive upspend potential, in account round tables, breakfasts, lunches, meetings, in-person events, customized meetings, all of that works very well if you're able to get people in the same room, if they have prior investment with you. If it's a brand new account, it's much harder to do that. And for that reason, you lean upon the challenges of the individual role, again, to kind of service their need. And the delivery mechanisms, nothing's truly changed in that aspect. If we're going digital, it adds white papers, to case studies, use cases, PBOs, all of those good things unique to the person work very well.
Question 4. We are going heads. So, okay. Problem. Uninspired follow-ups from sales ruining all the work marketing has done. How would you handle this? So how I would interpret that question is, you guys, or as marketers, have put in a great plan over like months. It's going really well. And then sales maybe have just been like, hey, just following up, or just like no effort's gone into it. I mean, maybe that's how I interpreted it. What about you?
Yeah. I think that speaks to the historic friction between sales and marketing, right? And I think someone who's good at ABM speaks sales. I was a previous salesperson before I got into marketing, which helps me develop and encourage sales enablement. And that could take the form of encouraging SDRs to transform into ADRs, account development reps, bringing those into the marketing channel themselves, and really teaching them how to construct value propositions that are meaningful if we're talking about outreach themselves. That's one way to do it, and all the training that goes with that. Another way to navigate that is to actually keep meeting with those salespeople at a regular cadence to ensure that we're on the same line, same plane when we talk about follow up. What's the next stage of this, and how are we going to speak to them? If you've dedicated the time, done account research, and worked out a value proposition or message that you think is going to particularly break into that account, make sure sales understand it, they're excited about it, they believe it, and that they've got an asset that speaks to that in some capability. And so they know, or they understand how we're going to crack into that account. But regular touch points, speak sales, and bring sales development into the account development side of things. That's how you do it.
Okay, I see. So that's more like damage. Like you're preventing the problem. Is there any tips on like the damage has been done? Creative, salvageable ways that you've like clawed back a deal from like the brink of death? Sounds dramatic, doesn't it? ABM can be life or
Yes,
death.
there are. When I was in sales, I remember screwing up all the work marketing had done and nearly killing an opportunity. And so I booked time with my head of marketing, and we talked at length about how I could save this particular account. And him and I went through the contacts that he thought I should get in touch with, and we composed a series of emails that spoke very bluntly but uniquely to that we didn't sidestep the damage I had done. We talked about it and talked about what we could do. And actually, as a miracle would happen, they came back, thanked us for the transparency, and kind of welcomed that opportunity back into the fold. But I think you need a marketeer that is approachable, has the time, and understands sales to a degree to save it. But ultimately, if something has been lost completely, I wouldn't try to blame sales themselves, because they live and die by commission. So one could argue that if they're trying their best to some degree.
Okay, well, I'm glad you saved it.
It didn't actually go into a win, but I saved it from the bugger up, which was like a nail biting. Yeah, salvaged it to that point, and then it fell down right at the finishing line. But that's not.
Yeah, I've been in these situations. I think everyone has. Or like you've sent out an email marketing campaign and you've just put hello name, and you're like, oh good lord. Or
the other thing I should have mentioned is have your campaign kickoffs. Have your campaign kickoff roundtables with the salespeople and present the campaign objectives, the strategy, the sales assets that are going to be supporting them, the cadence, the timelines, all of that stuff, and the reason why they should care as well. That you've got to bring them on board, but have a meeting, have a high quality presentation, and have the handouts at the end of that with easy to locate resources and assets that are going to be helping them. So having that big kickoff meeting is a wonderful way to try and avoid any uninspired follow-ups from sales after you have launched a campaign, as it were.
Awesome.
And it also gives excuse for no one to hide. So there's no hiding because we were all on that meeting. We all knew about it. And then you fire them. Exactly that. Out of a cannon.
Ruthless. Yeah. Right. Question 5. So we're nearly there. The problem that came in, the time it takes to adapt our ABM approach for different industries or verticals. So I guess this is just personalization tips on how you can streamline it, or if there's any methods that you use to do that.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So if we're looking at like an ITSMA approach to this, like ABM Gold Standards, they would say, well, it starts with the accounts and you work backwards, tailoring the marketing mix from that cluster or that account or, that segment, and you tailor it. But in reality, time is valuable and we can't afford to personalize everything to that standard. So we adapt it. It's a challenge. How do you know if that market or that vertical or that segment is going to be worth it? So you need to do the standardized marketing operation beforehand and work out where the value is and if it's going to be worth it. And then you work out to what level will we personalize existing assets? Are we going to be using, for instance, if it was just lifting one campaign to the other, will we be using dynamic imagery if we're going after marine and shipping vertical versus the transportation logistics vertical, but are the messages going to remain very similar? Will we have different microsites set up to reflect that as well? Will we have different keywords added into articles and blogs and things like that? I would tend to call that the like 15 to 20% personalization. So if you are going after a segment where it makes sense to lift a lot of existing assets and tailor them 15 to 20%, that's one approach you could take. But of course, we're trailing away from account-based marketing at that point and moving into segment or named marketing, which are terms that are kind of dead terms now, and we call it programmatic or light ABM or that sort of stuff. But that's how I would approach it.
Hey, nice. Lots and lots of detail. This is fantastic. Let's flip. Sorry, I should have flipped this before. So we are on tails. This brings us to question or the problem that came in: data validity and reliability. That was it. The 4 words. So, do you struggle with this?
Yeah.
Any
Okay.
information there?
Data validity and reliability. Yeah, it's a problem that affects every company in every industry at every level of that business as well. So it's not unique to anybody. In my world, I need to know if the information I have about accounts is accurate, and I need to know about the people in that account. And then, of course, so we've got firmographics and technographics as well, and there are providers to use. In my stack, I have Slimtel, which is part of the 6 Sense backend for that. So I get my contacts, my firmographics, my technographics from that side of things. I find that's more robust, more reliable than some other large providers, which we also use and compare. Nothing will beat a human eye and that ability to look into things beyond the obvious, which is where we talk about reviewing and refreshing the data with some of the lower salaries within the business. If you have a SDR function, if you have like a junior sales function, part of their responsibility and remit could be refreshing account data quarterly, and teaching them how to do that accurately is important. When it comes to intent data, third-party intent, there's lots of awesome providers out there. You also need to gain full master of your own data environment as well. So if you have, which I'm sure every viewer does, have their own digital presence, if you're not tracking every visitor to the best of your ability, then that's data that's already yours that you're throwing away. And that's important. Also, when it comes to intent data, there's different types of intent data. There's different ways they gain that intent. So is it just keyword based, or do they use natural language processing to understand the content of the article and to work out backwards from there? And which one's more meaningful for you will be at a case by case basis. But I would say that it's a challenge for every business. For me, it works quite well when I ask for a human verification via junior members of the sales and marketing force.
That's a unique approach. Didn't really think about that. Okay, so quarterly refreshes.
Could be, yeah. Like if you have if you've got 100 tier 1 accounts and you've got 5 SDRs, that's 20 each. So each one every quarter, beginning of the quarter, spends, or each one does an account review every week and make sure the right people are in the system, and anyone who's not there is deleted. Or if you know where they've gone, you change them. First party data, just track it back to an account level.
Using like sales nav, LinkedIn Sales Navigator and things.
So, well, first, at the crudest form, you could be using GA4 to track people on your domain. So Google Analytics. You could also be using like out-of-the-box solutions. Any one of the ABX providers or ZoomInfo have these elements of like sales websites or whatever. They just put like a tracker and push it back to a domain. That's pretty good from an account-based perspective. To get sexier, you need to push it into your CRM where it's usable. So someone like ZoomInfo is going to keep it inside ZoomInfo, so it's less usable. Because if you've got inside your CRM, then you can start having dynamic tiering structures where for an account or has more than 5 people go on my corporate or my product websites within the last month, I afford them 10 points, and that 10 points is made is one of the things I measure. I also measure third party and first party intent, and also the firmographics and anything else like that. And then you can grade each one of those points, or you can grade them with how valuable they are to you. So if you really prioritize a rise in that account's contacts visiting your sites, your articles, then you can weight them more impressively. So that one would have 50% of the weights. But that's one of the ways that we measure accounts. So we measure third party, first party, and to what degree are the members of that a company looking at our sites. So how many high engagement pages, how often, how many people, how long do they stay? But most of the ABX platforms now have that built into the mix on various levels.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, and then we
maybe
cross-reference them. So I have my own insights team doing the same thing, and then we have like an ABX platform that will then say, "Oh yes, I can see we're seeing some overlap here." So then we know those 5 out of the 10 are definitely good.
truly on brand inbox insights. I'm conscious of time, but we're at the last question. We are going tails, and it landed on finding new and innovative ways to cut through the B2B noise while adhering to budget constraints. So
Great question.
it is great problem. If you can solve it, you're going to be very, very rich man. But yeah, I'll let you take it away. Creative approach. I'm always leaning more creative. I love like the creative answers, but like what's been working well for you?
Was trying to find an awesome quote. That was it. So Pablo Picasso said, "Good artists borrow, but great artists steal." And I think that's something that's very close to my heart. It's important to be very aware of what everyone else is doing and what works for them. Usually, a vendor is going to publicize if it's worked for a client with use cases and results. So it's very important to borrow the intelligence of the people in the community. So we've got lots of intelligent people creating new and innovative ways to break through and cut through in ways that I couldn't even dream of. So it's important to see what works when they're doing it and steal it as quickly as you can if it's going to work for you. To me, it doesn't have to be extremely flashy. It has to be extremely meaningful and relevant. That's the big one. And that really, for me, that only really comes today. That only really comes from a good account manager, a good salesperson, a good marketeer having a firm grasp of what they're selling and who they're selling it to. That's like the fundamental element. With the rise of AI, what we're seeing is a new ability to absorb and analyze information that's relevant or about a person, collection of people, or a business, and transform it into something that is relevant in a scalable way. So in the next few years, we will have cheap and easy ways to see meaningful without putting any effort in whatsoever. But my tip for finding innovative and effective new ways is to speak to the community and understand what works for them, but also know what's going to work for your customer base, for your target market.
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty on that as well. I think that's so true because there are some really great books out there where the principles stand the test of time,
Yeah.
But like a lot of the time, especially with these ebooks coming out and things, or like, here's what I've done. But the time you get around to actually implementing it, if you're not quick enough, it's kind of dead in the water anyway. So yeah, being on the lookout, staying close to the community, I think that's a great answer to that question.
But when it comes to like mixed realities room, for example, it's something to explore because it was something I hadn't seen before. The appeal is obvious, is apparent, and you can see the benefit of it. And then once you explore a little bit, you can see if it is going to work for you or if it's not going to work for your business model. But I wouldn't have thought of a mixed reality room, so I'm glad somebody did. And if it works, then let's steal it.
Yeah. Well, I'll take that as a compliment. I guess it's new, outside the box. But yes, okay. So that is all the questions. So thanks so much for joining, George. I really appreciate that. In terms of like prizes at the moment, we were doing kind of like this flipping the coin, but based on the feedback that we've given already, we're giving out space goods. I'll send that to you in the post. The last question I have, and actually we touched on it earlier, but do you have another question or topic you think we should ask our next guest?
Yeah. How do you effectively manage strategic, light, and programmatic campaigns simultaneously? Because I've still not cracked that one. And I see it on every job application in the industry. Like, we want an ABM manager to manage or to run strategic, light, and programmatic campaigns continuously,
All at the same time.
all at the same time, and then manage, help the sales team as well, and then do something else with the data team.
On half
It's
the
a
budget and
it's a
double the
lot,
pipeline goal.
yeah, and yeah, half the time as well. Like tomorrow, if possible. But that's the big one for me.
All right, I'll include it, and we'll see what we get back. I think it's a tough question to answer, but yeah, we can only hope. But thanks again so much for joining.